Got Brandon Beers on today. We talked about how all that's going on in the world is affecting his business. He also has rope and cattle, Beers Cattle Company. If you guys want to check it out, interesting conversation. It's just wild times, and it's interesting to see how everybody's being affected. We're officially live. You're just cussing me for putting a video yesterday of you roping a leg. I didn't realize we got 2 videos yesterday. I only took 2 videos. One video of the sorrel, one video of the bay, and I posted both of them. But
I healed 14 steers probably.
That is true.
I roped one leg,
and that's the one
on
that got
Facebook.
So I think that's a Kennedy thing. I think when you talk to Kennedy, she's the one that got it.
Probably.
So I think one of the things that's interesting about you is that you know steers probably. Who do you know that knows cattle better than you do? Like, who do you go to with cattle for cattle advice? I know Daryl.
Daryl Sewell.
But that's kind of like where you and I, when we started the cattle project, you being here, we knew each other just living close to each other, but you're the only person I know that likes roping steers like I like roping steers. Like, I just nerd out them. We were having this talk the other day about just going out driving and sitting and looking at them. Where did that, I don't know how far back we want to go, but like, you didn't start off as with cattle in mind, did you?
No. I mean, I've always tried to pay attention to them to see try to figure out what a steer's going to do. So if you have to run him at a roping, but not till 5-6 years ago did I have to be around cattle all the time.
Well, and you got like you said, from a rodeo perspective, because you started off rodeo, and that was kind of the original goal, was the rodeo career. Everybody has a certain level of interest because, like you said, you get to a rodeo, the more a guy can read cattle, the better chance he's going to have.
Right.
So there's a certain level of just moderate interest that everybody has. Where did it kind of, in your mind, where did that start to kind of transition to, like, maybe it was something that you were going to want to do after you're done rodeoing?
Probably not till, honestly, when I had my shoulder done.
Like, so that wasn't that long ago.
No, I mean, that's kind of when I was like, hey, I might need to do something else, maybe. And I kind of like the steers. Yeah. I like doing steers. I like putting on ropings. I like being a contractor.
Yeah. And so, like, in your mind, because I know that's from just strictly from a rodeo perspective, however many people, like, it went well, rodeo and the career, the travel and the whole deal, the money's good, everything's fine. Seems like people get along in their marriages and things are good.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, like, rodeo kind of starts to slow down. And that, to me, is where you see the, like, that's the panic. That's where people start running into, like, questions they haven't had to answer before. And so for you, having this as your kind of your next venture, how much did that help in the transition out of rodeoing for a living into what is, kind of, I'm not explaining this very well, but most people, it's just a question mark. Most people's like, I'm going to rodeo as long as I can, and then they end up working for someone else. They end up changing tires. They end up doing just anything they can do to survive. How much of that in your mind, when did you see this, like, your shoulder changed, and what year was that?
15.
And
yeah,
so,
May of 15.
Were you kind of ready to be done rodeoing at that point, or?
No, I mean, I still like. So here's the deal with me. If you ask the traveling partners and everything, I loved rodeoing. I loved competing. I loved winning. I didn't even mind losing. I liked going to bat.
That's a lie.
Well, I didn't like losing.
You could tolerate it.
I liked competing. I liked going to the rodeos. I hated traveling.
Yeah.
I mean, I would try any way possible to get out of going places. If I'm like, man, we really don't need to go, we don't need to win, like, we got enough won, I would come. I don't really want to go.
So being home, even back then.
That's been me the whole time.
Well, I remember, like, this is probably there's a Jill Cooper's wedding. So she got married in, I think, 2011.
Yeah.
So it was before I moved up here. Jim was saying he couldn't get you to come back down for whatever. There was, like, a series of rodeos, I think Guyman during that time, and, like, you just gone home. Jim was rodeoing with somebody else because, like, even in the heat of the rodeo, and just being home was even important to you back then.
I've always liked to be home.
So the transition, because not too long ago, you guys had run a ranch in Kimberly, and they had cattle.
Yep.
How much? Because, like, I remember back then, that was a part of what you were doing. I mean, you're still rodeoing, but that running the cattle into that deal for a while. Did you see it then as maybe when I'm done, this is the direction I'll go, even like before you got done?
Not really. Just till I got involved with Daryl and Joyce, it really wasn't something that I was like, hey, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Because I would do things, and I would take cattle places, and I would help put on ropings, and I'd kind of do a half-ass job. You know,
Yeah.
I might not be there. I might just send guys, you know, or
But there were
friends, or
cattle, and
There
they
was
could have a
cattle,
rope,
and
and
they had a rope, and you might steers were pretty good, but like now we're there. I mean,
Right.
I've been there. I mean,
we were talking yesterday about when even back when I was roping calves, we would break in steers from the ranch over there, and they were natives, and they were heifers, or they hadn't seen people. Like, it genuinely, I mean, being a calf roper, I didn't really care. I didn't have a horse I was trying to take care of, ropes or whatever, but it was not fun. Like, it was work back then because they
Oh,
were just
my
so
gosh.
wild off that place. Like you're saying, the progress, even in the last 5 or 6 years from where it started with cattle. I remember one time at Buckner's, they had one of those lighter panels, and one heifer jumped into it, but she didn't get over it. And then the heifer behind her was already committed, jumped into her. Now there's 3 heifers on the panel. The panel falls over. They're at the bottom of the heap. And I mean, it's like 80 jumping over this fence, and everybody's just kind of like,
there's been times at Buster Bain's arena now, which was Dan Levitt's. We used to break in steers there. That I know that my brother-in-law and myself and Pat Lane had maybe 4 or 5 tied down in the arena.
just had
Not
enough, couldn't
sure,
take it.
not sure why, not sure, and just kept breaking in steers.
Well, so we'll get to the imported cattle in a minute, but I think it's important that people understand, like, it didn't start with in-brand, nice, gentle, easy to be around cattle. Where it started was, like, you're thinking this may be a career, but you're at that point, you're dealing with cattle that if they couldn't get away, would turn around, and then they're on the fight, and like hundreds of them. Like, it was wild. I remember being like, I was surprised at how wild they were because they just didn't see people. Yes, they were Corianis.
We used to break in. We supplied that ranch, supplied cattle for the Charlie Crawford roping.
Yep.
And
That was in Prineville?
Yep, Prineville. The week before the roping, we would go to the ranch with a crew of about 6 guys. And we'd stay in Kimberly, and we'd break in 200 head. And it was chaos the whole
Absolute
entire
chaos.
time.
Yeah.
Absolute chaos.
Well, and it's crazy because now, if we had to go back to that now, considering where we're at, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but it literally, like, the only thing that saved us or me, and probably, I don't know if you that season, we had nothing to compare to. Like, we really hadn't gone through thousands of head of good Mexican imported cattle. We were getting whatever. And so if we had to go back to that now, like, it almost wouldn't even be worth it. Like, the idea of breaking in those kind of, it was literally like catching
terrible.
deer.
I couldn't. Your horses got, I mean,
So it would be easy. It would be easy in my mind. It would be easy to understand why you wouldn't think that's a career that you would want to go into. I was like,
Right.
it's just work. It's a headache. And then when you get to the opens, I mean, when you're raising your own, you can have good solid black, good horns. Like phenotypically, they look the part, but they still might not. They're going to be wild. They're not going to handle well. And so then you're getting yelled at as a stock contractor because, like you said, you're just dropping them off like, hey, they are what they are. It'd be easy to understand why that wouldn't seem like a career.
which that's one thing that happens no matter what. Getting yelled at as a stock contractor, it doesn't matter if they're all the same. They might be too good. Hey, they'll come out the catch pen. They're too good, and you're just getting cussed. And I always run the catch pen, or most of the time I'm down there, and did you see that? That steer was too slow. I never had a steer that was too slow.
No.
Never.
No.
I've never left a rodeo and be like, Travis Tryon said it best. Someone said something about, man, yeah, I think that steer's just too good. He's like, he was on Walt at the time. Watch.
Fastest.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you let me and Walt and Mike Jones and Jackal. Hey,
We'll figure it out.
We'll
figure
you.
out how to get by.
We'll figure it out. Yeah.
I had a guy last year, and I hope he doesn't watch because probably isn't very nice. Yesterday, I had my wife on here, and about 3 times she'd reach over and kick me on the foot, like, and so I don't have anybody to warn me today. We had her open here last year. We had all of they weren't even fresh Mexicans. They were the Mexican steers that had been rodeoing on there, the blue tag set that had kind of slowed down.
Yeah.
She's getting in my line of sight over there. She's warning me. A guy walks up. I mean, we'd started with 100. We'd worked them all the way down to where there was 35 in this set. So, I mean, 65 steers that had been taken off for size or speed or whatever. I mean, you could not have got a more even set. And a guy rides up to me at this arena right here and goes, "What do you think about this?" And I go, "Oh, yeah, it's a good day." I didn't know who he was. He's like, "Tyos would never put up with this." And I remember going like, I didn't understand what he was saying. Exactly your point. He's like, "This wouldn't work." And I go, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Ty Yost, he separates them. He'll measure them. He was basically saying like he would put a speed gun on them to see like their speed." Mike Fuller was telling me this year that somebody told him that he measures the speed of his cattle with a baseball pitching machine. And I'm like, you're right. To your point, you're going to get complaints about whatever. It doesn't matter what you do. I do remember 5 years ago, there probably was some credence every now and then to that.
Mm-hmm.
So that you transition out of that. And I remember that was like 16, 17, somewhere in there that you started to go out on your own to do your own deal.
Yeah, I think 16.
And so, and that's not, it's crazy. That hasn't been that long ago, considering everything that's happened in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Had surgery in 15, went out on your own in 16, started in with the Mexican cattle that have just, in my mind, they've just changed the scope of team roping around here. How did you get started there? I mean, that's a big, I mean, people listening may not understand what all goes into that.
My dad used to buy a load every year in February from the Spudtacular, was a USTRC roping in Klamath Falls. And then
they had US Ropens up there.
Yeah, and it was awesome. Mike McCohen, Chris McCohen's dad, put that on. One of the greatest U.S. Ropens. Daryl Sewell and Mike did it. I mean, they'd get, I remember then, Billy Gallagher and I won the 15, which is the 15 now. Would have been the 11 back then. Right. I think there was 120 teams.
Wow.
You don't get 30
now
in a 15. And
well, that's crazy because that's the reason the U.S. quit having Ropens up here is they weren't getting. So to get
that was
many,
in February. That was in February.
Man.
And, I mean, it was full 2 days. Like, if you want to rope and you want a saddle and you won 5,000. And they were awesome. Crazy. And Daryl did those, and then my dad would buy Mexican steers and 100 of them. And then he bought a load of natives always. And then they put on their U.S. Ropens in Prineville. And then that's when they were still doing Ropens in Rufus.
No kidding. And they had U.S. Ropens in Prineville.
Mm-hmm. Good ones.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
What year was that?
Oh, my gosh. I mean, 2000.
Not that long ago then, really. I mean, it's the 80s. I mean,
and they were good Ropens. I mean, those U.S. Ropens my dad used to have U.S. Ropens in Rufus, Oregon, on the river.
Up there, the barn.
Yep. That they would have to park at the restaurant downtown. Serious. They'd get 300-400 teams of roping.
So when you're looking at like, hey, you got to do something. The roping deal is changing. You got to do something different. There was a little bit of something to pull from of past experience. Like there had been ropings put on somewhere in your family. Like you've been familiar with it. You still had contact with Daryl and Joyce Sewell, who've been like huge in this process. Or is that the first people you call as far as like, what do I do?
Yeah, for sure.
Did Daryl try to tell you not to do it?
No.
Really?
No, he went with me to the border the first time. Him and Lee Lancaster.
Really?
Yeah, he drove. I picked him up at the Marana exit at 5:30 in the morning, and I am nervous. I'm like,
because you're about to go all in personally. Like, this is now not like you're working for someone else.
We went to the border. Your deal. We went to the border, and I remember we went there that day, and they didn't cross nothing, like 40 head. And I'm like, oh, my gosh, this is not what I thought. I mean, I got to see everything and go through it. And it's
kind of cool. I mean, having been around team roping steers, it's kind of cool to see where it all happens.
Oh, yeah, it was neat. The slider opened, and there's Mexico, and here they come, and there wasn't much. And so Daryl's like, well, let's go get a room. We went and got a room, had lunch. The next morning at 5 o'clock, he's up, and we went, and that was when Fred Lucero, the Viking, was still alive, and we went to Fred's house, and we got there at, 7:30. I drank 10 cups of coffee just listening to Daryl and Fred talk. By the time we got to the border, I was just plumb shaking. So if I wasn't before, I was then.
People thought something was up because your hands are shaking already.
And then they crossed quite a few. I think the first time I went to the border, I got 87 steers.
Yeah.
And I thought they were cool looking.
I was telling Lacey the other day, like the old John Wayne movies or like Lonesome Dove or all these old Western movies, they all have old Mexican steers and like they've just got a look. The paint, they got so much color. I'm kind of a nerd about them. I just like them. Like I just like looking at them. And so to see them come across in their original form, you get this idea of like these big giant horns that are black on the ends and like you kind of have in mind. When you see what they actually cross, it's almost a little bit of a letdown. Like I still like them just because I like roping cattle.
Right.
But they're skinny, they're weak, they're older. They just kind of look, what's the A+ premium team roping steer is much different than what the beef market would expect in the beginning.
Well, and when they come across, very rarely, the few times when I've been there, they don't come across sorted. Like there might be 5 that look like they came off Chisholm, the movie with John Wayne.
Yeah.
And then there's 27 that.
So they're just sending them over in batches.
They just send them over, and then the guys like Matt, they're in charge of sorting them. and they sort them.
What does Matt do with like what would be considered a cull? Something that's not going to work. Does he just have?
I think
buyers
he just
for
has
those?
to buy them.
And then what does he? I mean, we got to have him on here at some point.
I think
he's just got buyers.
He's
that
just
got
to buy them and feed them up.
Yeah,
and then he's kind of stuck with them because there's steers that come across that I'm sure he ends up taking that are never going to be roped. They're never going to be roped ever.
So 87 head, and you don't have I mean, it's not like you've got a business at this point. You're just a guy that's trying to get started. A guy like Daryl is a giant advantage. I mean, a guy like that, because he's been doing this forever. I mean, I've only gotten to know him just a little bit. I don't really know him that well even now. But everybody that talks about team rope, like you watch the old Mike Survey videos from like 87, and they're talking about Daryl Sewell being in the middle of it, forever. So a guy like that is a huge advantage. When you called him, he just saw it as a opportunity to hand off to somebody else? Or, I mean, why would a guy like Daryl, I'm going to say this, you understand what I'm saying? Like, why would a guy like Daryl take an interest in Brandon?
He's probably done it for so long that I can see with putting up, and I'm saying this not in a bad way because team ropers is what makes our business. We got to have them.
Right.
But there's days that I leave ropings and I have 200 steers there and I've been feeding them and I've been sorting them and working them and I get cussed. It's probably just like, if somebody else wants to take it, do it. Let them do it.
Go for it.
I mean, when I show up with 200 steers at a World Series roping and I sit at the catch pen and I mean, you don't get it necessarily directly, but you get verbally abused and you're like,
well, I think that's something that has surprised me getting to know you in the last 8 or 10 years is like, first time I met you, you were still little. Like, you look more like, back in the day, and like kind of lippy, and you remember, I mean, we're kids.
Yeah.
And then a little bit later, I was probably a 10-year period, like when I was living at Jake and Jim's and you were around, and like just rodeo minded. What's been interesting to me seeing you in this phase, like you're married, you're a dad now, and what's been surprising to me is it does matter. Like, you want people to enjoy the rope, and you want people to like the cattle.
For sure.
Like, I don't think people that don't know you would realize how big of a deal that is to you. So when somebody's like cussing you about something, it actually does. It
bothers me.
Yeah, it does.
If my wife asks me, when I say, hey, where are you going? I'm going to go put out mineral for the steers. You did that yesterday. I'm like, well, they need it today.
I need to watch them.
I need to go make sure that everything's okay.
Well, and like if 30 people go, hey, this is a great rope and this is awesome, thanks for doing it, it's been great, and one guy goes, this is sorry, stupid, blah, 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 that's the one that's going to stick out. Like, that's going to be the guy that sticks out in your memory. Just like the guy last year that's cussing me when I thought we couldn't have done any better. Of course, it's a year later, and I'm still like, you know what that guy said? So I don't know how you get over that. I mean,
they're the ones that, I mean, we have to have people come to the ropings. And I understand you're frustrated when you leave if you don't draw the steer you want and everything, but we are also the ones that are putting out our neck and supplying the cattle. So everybody's trying.
So you start with 87 head, you get home, and what's the plan? I mean, is there a 5-year plan, or is it like, today I'm going to try to accomplish something today? I mean, where in that range, when you first started, 2016, was it, this is where I want to be in 2 years, this is where I want to be in 5 years, or was it, let's see how this goes this year? When
I got those steers, my goal for them was, and then we added to them. We got another, I think I came up here with 140 head total.
Yep. Because they've got to stay. They cross, and then they've got to be here, in a border state.
Yep.
They can't cross state lines for 45 days, right?
Yeah, they're 60 days from their original TB test.
And usually it's 15 days on that side of the border.
Yep.
They come over here, 45 here, right?
Yep. So we crossed those steers, and I've been involved with Justin Davis with the Brock Creston Memorial.
Yep.
And that's it's Justin and Jeff's roping, but they've always let me be the cattle guy, so I'm involved in it. Like, I want it to be good. So that was when I was like, hey, we're going to have fresh Mexicans. We're going to break them in. We're going to do everything. And
that, to me, right there, is a difference than we've got the cattle, we'll put a run on them, take them. It's now you're invested. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be roping, but I also want it to see how good you can do. Like, what kind of a team roping production are you capable of putting on? What better place than the Brock Cresta to go, here's what I think I can do.
Right. And that first year, the crazy thing that happened was we had this plan because the Davis's Arena in Cottonwood is unreal.
Prettiest outdoor arena probably that there is.
Ever. Yeah. I mean, that year it rained us out. We had to go in the pavilion at Red Bluff.
That's right.
It was like an NFR setup, and I'm on fresh steers. And I'm like,
so I know, man. But explain why that's such a bad deal. Because, like, if you're outside, a steer really gets a lot of confidence that, like, they see open air, they get confidence to get their run going, you're giving more of a head start. And what you don't want to do, I mean, I'm telling you what you're going to say, but like you don't want to discourage a steer early on in their career. So like the original Brock Cresta scenario at Justin's house wouldn't have been bad for those steers.
No,
But
it'd
for
been
someone
great,
listening
great
that wouldn't
for
have
'em.
known, you go to an indoor arena, how does that change?
So it's like going to the indoor rodeos. People get so mad at contractors because they're like, hey, steers here at Denver or San Antonio or anywhere, they sucked. They don't know. There's nowhere to run to.
Well, the gates
There's
open.
no spot.
The minute the gates open, they've got a rope on them, and they're getting no confidence that they can get away, so they quit running. They quit trying.
And like the pavilion, they don't even see anything else. They don't see an end. They like where we had them in that indoor, it was little tiny.
So it's
they're just kind of running. They're just kind of.
So it's your first year.
Yeah.
Your first set of Mexicans. This is like day one for Brandon Beer's Cattle Company.
Yep.
And rained out, and it's the worst possible scenario for a fresh set of steers because they don't even have a target place to run to.
Pretty much.
So how'd they survive?
It was good.
They did.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it was fine. We had a pre-roping. We put together a little pre-roping real quick. And
Did they have that year? Did they have that over at that guy's place? That's kind of the narrow place with the.
No, we had the pre-roping. So the rain has happened a couple times, but we just had it in the pavilion right there. And then the next year, it did the same thing, and we had to have the junior NFR and the pre-roping at. It was at Bunnings Arena.
One of the prettiest places I've ever seen.
Yeah,
I mean,
is.
It's just grass. If you've ever been there, it's just grass. Like it seems like 10 million acres of just nothing but grass. And that time of year, everything's still green. I remember I was telling them, man, this is beautiful. And they're like, just wait till June. It all turns yellow. But yeah, so 2 years in a row then.
Mm-hmm.
That was the year I went with Joe. And I rode my gray horse, and he'd never seen a rope barrier. And it did not occur to me until I don't know what I was doing.
And Lee Legacy was
had
there.
a thousand things going on. I don't know what on earth, because we hauled some steers down of ours. And I was riding the box, and they stringed the barrier up, and it occurs to me like,
oh,
I didn't even consider it might have a rope barrier, and he jumped and didn't go. But so the second year, they get to have the big roping outside, though.
Mm-hmm.
And so then now you're kind of off and running. Okay, but let's not get ahead of it. So the first year, you have it at the Cresta there at the barn. It goes okay.
Yep.
You're still kind of trying to get your feet on the ground. I mean, you're now in business for yourself. You leave Cottonwood, then what? I mean, what was that summer like?
The World Series roping was the plan.
How quickly, because Daryl was the one that had control over all those ropings, right? And so he knew pretty quickly that was going to be a big part of your survival, was going to be having some bigger contracts.
So for 2 years before that, I think we helped at those World Series ropings.
And Daryl had steers, right?
Yep. They had steers, and then we brought steers and kind of did everything. And then that year was the year that he said, okay, if you're going to do steers, you're going to have them at all the ropings, and I think then we only had two. I think we had Powell Butte and Pendleton.
In Pendleton, yeah.
Yep. And then I had the Carl Schneebly Memorial, and that was in John Day, and that was about it.
What year? And I mean, we don't have to get into too much detail. It's public. I know it's kind of a private deal, but John Barry's accident happened in.
It would be
16.
This was going to be the fourth roping.
So yeah, it happened.
Yep.
And so pretty quickly, I mean, there's just a lot of personal stuff. We don't have to get into all that. But pretty quickly, JW and Kelly said we want that to be a big rope, and they knew that they wanted that to be a big event every year in March.
Yep.
So that got added on to this list of all the other events that are now growing. You had the Schneebly, and then there's now what is there now? There's the Oregon City. There's two in Powell Butte. Well, there was
two in Powell Butte.
We'll get back to that. We had. I'm getting way ahead of myself. So anyway, those ropings in the summer, you knew you had the June World Series, and then Pendleton.
That was it.
And that was it. That for your year, that was going to be your event.
Yep.
How did it go that first year? I mean,
it was pretty good. Well, and see,
obviously it's going to be tight. I mean, you know that things are going to be tight the first year. You know that going into it because you're getting a line of credit on cattle. You're trying. I mean, any business that's starting off is going to be pretty thin.
See, in the first year is the year that I bought the Cheyenne cattle. So everything that I had, we sold. And then in July, we got those Cheyenne cattle.
And they were big.
Oh, my gosh.
They were strong.
They were
and
huge.
Big. Well, and that's that's a weird one, too, because you want them to be strong enough that they can survive.
Yep.
But, man, I remember there was a couple, like the big end of them was.
Oh, they weighed 550, 600. Yeah, they were
big.
huge.
But again, first year, I mean, you're still learning. You know, how did that, as far as a setback goes, where did that register? I mean, you're kind of.
It was okay. They were just a little bigger than I liked them. They lasted really good, but the people that you have to make happy, which is your team ropers, they thought they were too big.
Well, and that's what's crazy is like a little fresh one that I would like to own, that you like roping and having around. Those are not the ones that hold up. I mean,
No,
it's kind of a balance. It is a
they'll-
balance. You want something that's a little bit stronger that can take the runs, but without being so strong that kind of discourages the team ropers too. It's a weird balance. There's a lot. I mean, until somebody puts on a rope, and there's a lot that goes into it.
If you had unlimited amount of money and you could buy little 400 pounders and just rope the crap out of them,
Everybody would be happy, but you
yeah,
just
but when
burn
they
through
weigh
steers.
400 pounds and they are no longer a roping steer, that's like $200.
Yeah.
It really doesn't work.
Yeah, so the economy of it is a weird one. So you get through the first year, and you're still rodeoing at that point. Didn't you start rodeoing a little bit again?
Mhm.
There, so
Yeah. I think 16 I roped with Caesar some, and then then Jim and I went to the BFI and we went and roped some again.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so, like, because we're building up to this year, because what's been interesting is like every year it's been slowly building, and like everybody's aware. I mean, everybody's watching this knows like we didn't even start doing this until this coronavirus thing starts, and like the world changes.
Right.
And I've said it before, like I want to be aware that like in my own personal life, I feel like I've been a little bit almost insulated from it. I mean, our stuff is growing online and things like that. Like I just preached an Easter sermon, for instance, to an empty room.
Right.
So we're seeing some changes, but like with you guys, it's been, and I mean, you decide how into this you want to go, but this has been a weird year so let me say it this way. There's a lot of people watching this right now that are probably in the same boat you are, of like things were going so good, because this was going to be kind of the year that, I mean, this was like the get ahead year. Starting like in February, it looked like things were going great. We broke in a set of steers in Arizona. When? What was that? Like,
Oh, it was
fourth week in February?
yeah, right there.
Something like that?
Yeah.
And so when it starts to change, and like I said, I don't even know how much of this to get into because we haven't gotten out of it. It'd be nice to be having this conversation of like back, remember when, but for people that may not know, I mean, it's your income is based on what you make, what the steers make.
Yeah.
And right now, how many events have you had canceled so far?
We've had 4 for sure.
And that's just
huge.
what we know.
Yeah. And we have all the steers. They're here.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. I mean, you people I assume people would know, but maybe they don't. Like, if you're going to have a roping in March, you don't buy the cattle in March. I mean, you've got them in January or February, getting them ready so that they're ready. Because again, the weaker cattle, the stronger you can get them, the longer they're going to last. So you've got all this money invested into getting them to this point, and it's just kind of on pause right now.
Yeah.
What's that going to do? I mean, in your mind, when this turns back on, we've had this conversation. I think the ropings are going to be bigger.
I think they should be. I mean, I hope that, I know that we're hurting by not having ropings, but I also know that people that have businesses are hurting. So I hope, I don't blame you if you don't come to our roping and you haven't been able to make,
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you what's weird, and we'll see. We'll see. I mean, at this point, it's all speculation, but so many people in rural are still working.
right.
Like, and I know that's not, I know not everybody. I know there are people that are specifically not. But generally speaking, it seems like that the more metro areas are the ones that are the most shut down, because that's where all the infection's spreading the quickest. You go out of town a little ways where people are a little bit more spread out, and like people are still working. So
Still
the
a lot of
people,
stuff going
people
on.
that are coming to the team ropings are probably to some degree, maybe
Yeah.
not 100%, but they're still working. And I think maybe that's part of the reason. I mean, it would be important if somebody's listening. It's important, like enter. It's important, like before we started doing the cattle deal, and we started ours in like 2014. So we're 6 years into it. One of the things I've learned is like we depend on people. Like if they're not sure if they want to go or not, it's a huge help when people will show up and enter.
Oh, it's huge.
You know, when this starts to turn back on, like I can't encourage people enough. Like go enter, do what you're able to do if this is something that you want to see continue, because it does depend on people jumping in and contributing, and maybe they don't see it that way. And because I didn't, I'll be completely honest, I didn't really maybe put the pieces together. Like, maybe I want to rope, maybe I don't. Like it doesn't really matter if I go or if I don't. Like no, it depends. It depends on if we want to have ropings, you got to enter the ropings that are there.
So we've noticed this winter, we had ropings practices and stuff at my brother-in-law's, and it's funny, a certain amount of people would always show up, and those are the people that realize, like, hey, no matter what, when you say you're having roping, you got to have a timer, an announcer, 3 guys at the chute, 2 guys at the back end, somebody bringing steers up. It takes the same amount of people.
Yeah.
When people don't show up, it's like, ugh, which I get it. I understand that.
Well, if you can't afford it, that's one
That's
thing.
fine.
But that's how an economy, and generally that's how an economy works, is that everybody is sort of participating to the best of our ability. Without that, and we've talked about this, I mean, we went from not having really any team roping events all winter. Back when I was roping calves and you were still rodeoing, you were gone all winter. There wasn't even practices. Like, I think Randy Patrick had that practice at Brasada on Tuesday nights for 1 year, and then it was just too expensive. It wasn't worth it because sometimes people show up, sometimes they don't. So it just shut off. So, I mean, people almost get, I think, a little bit spoiled at what we've worked at putting together, and I'm not patting ourselves on the back. I think it's a good reminder. We have worked pretty hard in the last 4 or 5 years to put together an environment where you could get to rope all winter, and that could go away. If that goes away, I remember what that was like. There was nothing.
People just get tired of trying. Like that year that I bought those Cheyenne steers, Christian told me that I think at Pendleton, he's like, hey, I want to buy 80 of the good ones. I'm going to do ropens. And his ropens were good, and his practice was good. But he spent a lot of money on cattle,
Right.
and people didn't show up like they should have. He bought 80 head of the very best steers that I had at Pendleton.
Yeah.
And, I mean, they kind of come. Sometimes they don't.
Yeah, that's a weird one. And I don't think the average observer would know that. I don't think the average person watching would know. It is expensive, and it's not like anybody's getting rich.
Well, 80 steers in the winter, like at our practices and stuff down there, we had a lot, like 150. I mean, you're feeding a bale a half a day. It's $100 a steer.
Well, and the guy that gets ahead is the guy that wins the jackpot. That's the guy making the money.
Yeah,
Everybody else is just kind of getting by. I mean, you do what you can, but really, realistically, those are the guys that are getting ahead. Everybody else is just kind of, we're doing it because it's something that we love to do. But what do you think, so rodeo-wise, I mean, if you're speculating, when do you think it's going to get turned back on?
I hope soon. I mean, I hope ropens, rodeos, everything. I don't know. They keep canceling things farther and farther out.
Yeah. Well, and I think jackpots, we've said it, I think jackpots are going to turn on quicker because you're not selling tickets.
Right.
You're not dealing with sponsorship money from local businesses that are just trying to get back on their feet. A team roping jackpot, you can put it together pretty quick. Those will turn back on pretty fast. The qualifiers, have you heard anything about them bumping the qualification date for the World Series back at all, closer to the finals?
With the cancellations, I do know that they legacy members that can enter whenever they want. I know they moved that deadline. I don't know exactly what they're going to do on the qualifiers, but it sounds like they're going to move it back because they've canceled a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would be willing to say 30, 40 ropens, probably.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's going to be ripple effects. We know but rodeos, if you're selling tickets, I mean, in my mind, it'd be interesting. We could talk to some people, I guess, but you would think there's at least a 60-day window of ticket sales that you've got to really ramp up to make the rodeo work, sponsorship money and the whole deal. So if they turn it right back on, all right, July 1st, it's lifted, everybody do whatever you want. You can't put on a 4th of July rodeo because at that point it's too late. You don't have the time to put all the things together to have that rodeo. So even if it gets turned back on, like Sisters just canceled. So that to me is a good indicator that like today is April 8th or 9th or whatever today is. So in my mind, that's a 60-day window. They're seeing that their 60-day window is closing. They can't do what they need to do in that amount of time. So as this keeps moving forward, so does that date. Like it keeps moving out too. And so I'm curious to see when it gets turned back on.
Well, like Oakdale, so I talked to Justin Davis about it today. He said that Oakdale they moved their dates, and then I guess yesterday they just canceled. They said they can't afford to have the rodeo with no fans, no stuff.
Yeah. 2 years ago, I won't say names, wouldn't do any good anyway, but I told somebody 2 years ago that's involved in a rodeo association, like, why don't you build a rodeo association that's in one place that's made for TV? Because like if you've ever been to a professional football game, it's cool atmosphere and there's a lot of people there. But if you want to watch the game, the best way to watch a football game is on TV.
Oh, for sure.
You know, if you could build a rodeo association that is built, the event, the arena, the setup, everything is made to grow a TV audience where you don't have to sell tickets at all, then you're able to expand your TV following. This 2 years ago, because it's kind of what we're doing with the church. I mean, we see our greatest opportunity for growth at the church as an online because then we have no boundaries, no matter where you're at. And globally, I mean, we're going to try to send a rodeo to China. We're going to try to send a rodeo to here. They're like, wait a minute, why don't you build basically a studio set, have a rodeo association that is going on consistently at a time where maybe the rest of the rodeos aren't, and you have a season that people could follow online. And I'm telling you, I almost got laughed off the phone call. Like, but you look at it now, I'm curious to see if those sort of changes
Well, like
are going to be considered maybe in the future.
we got the Cowboy Channel just because Ronnie Keys told me that, hey,
Showing
there's a
rodeo
rodeo
every
on
night.
every night.
Yep,
I'm
same.
like, are you kidding me? I would go by there, stop, watch it at his house, and be like, Kimber would call me, like, hey, where you at? Well, San Antonio Short Round's on, or
Yeah,
wherever.
yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay. So she finally got it, so that I
Gave
wouldn't
up
stay
so you
over
come
there.
home
Yeah,
for dinner.
yeah. So I wouldn't stay over there. But I think same thing. Like the NFR, I probably sat and watched more performances maybe than anybody watching
Yeah.
my dad. Hey, now that the last 5 years I haven't made it, when it's on, we watch it.
Yeah.
You can rewind it. You can slow-mo it.
Yep,
You can
yep.
put your 2 cents in that don't mean anything.
Well, you have friends over, like
Yeah.
sit in your own home. I wish somebody would consider it. I wish somebody would consider it because, like, what we realize right now is absolutely, like, while we're going through the team roping thing, we are absolutely dependent on each other. We are. No matter how independent we want to be, what we realize is that we are actually all connected. People that buy tickets in the stands, I'll bet the athletes have never felt more personally connected to the guy that bought a ticket than they do right now, because now without that guy, they're not getting to do what they want to do.
Right.
You know, like there is this connection that we maybe like, and like team roping producers and the people who are entering, even as weird as it sounds, the guy that's complaining, it's all part of the function. That's all part of it. I don't know. That's just a soapbox. It'd be interesting. It'd be interesting to see if somebody were to launch something like that, what it would look like. I mean, I don't know why it wouldn't work. Anyway, so now from a cattle perspective, you're sitting around. The people that are getting rodeos canceled right now have their cattle already, just like we're talking about. We've got cattle that are sitting there getting fed every day. Practices have been awesome. Practices have been rank.
Yeah.
But so all these cattle are sitting around all summer getting strong. What's that going to do to the team roping when it turns back? Let's say, well, they just canceled Estes Park, but like that week of like Casper, if it turns back on third week in July, what does the team roping look like from right there till Stephenville when the season ends? How is it going to be different than what we've seen in the past?
I think the cattle are going to be stronger because, I mean, you're going to have to rope what you have.
Remember the BFI last year when they left steers out, how strong they got, how quickly they got strong.
Yep.
They've got all summer to do that.
I mean, they're going to, if you have steers, you're going to keep them. And then you haven't made any money to where you can go, like, say you got a set of steers in February and you roped them for 3 months. You made money. Oh, I can go buy some new ones.
These haven't made anything.
No, nobody's made any money.
So they're keeping
You're going to get roped.
Yeah.
Like, hey, that
like
steer's
the calf
too big.
roping, the calf roping, I think it won't affect it that much because there's all you expect because of the growth. There's going to be a cycle of roping cattle. So the calves, I don't think will change. And in the Northwest, they're not even weaning the calves. They're going to rope up here till then anyway.
Right.
But steers are going to be a lot stronger at a time where the arenas are bigger. You know, the summer rodeos, the arenas are going to be bigger. It's going to be, I mean, big arenas, strong cattle. It's going to be like 1989 again.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be strong. I mean, it's kind of like what we used to rope at the U.S. ropings, like the regional finals in Winnemucca. I have pictures heeling steers that it looked like the steer was as big as my horse.
Yeah.
Well, and now you get cussed if they're like, hey, I think that steer weighs 500. Hey, try to rope a 600 pounder.
Well, and so it's not even, it's a combination. They're going to be big because these Mexican steers, if you feed them and don't rope them down, they grow. They get big.
Yep.
So they're going to be big and they're going to be strong. So now it's not even a combination of like, well, they're big, but they're okay, or they're strong, but they're little. I mean, it's going to be a different world for,
and I hope we get to have rodeos. I really do. I hope that we get to see strong cattle and, oh my gosh, if they have the Cheyenne and Salina steers already, holy moly.
Yeah. Well, we know the guy. It's got, 200 steers sitting up there that may or may not get to use them.
They're going to be strong.
Then what does he do? Imagine buying a set of steers. You don't get to use them all summer long, like where you're kind of buying and selling right now to sort of figure because we don't know what's going to happen. That guy that's stuck with 200 head, he's not making anything back on him.
I don't know. It's going to hurt everybody.
Yeah. So what about you? I don't know if this is public or private. I don't know what your perspective is or if you have to get permission from Kimber to talk about it or not. But, well, I mean, let's say that you get the call that, hey, let's say July 30th, game on, rodeos are back on. Is there a little spark down in there that's like, wait a minute, back to big cattle, big arenas, open, like
summertime? Yeah. I actually got the go ahead. So, like, I already
Kimber's already
got told.
approved it.
She's like, hey, if you only have to rodeo for 2 months and, like, there's a chance you can make the finals again.
Today you're going on record as saying that if they turn it back on July 30th, and it's only going to be a 2 month
I'm going
season.
to go probably try to rodeo. Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to change my steer deal or anything, but
Yeah.
And no, not really. No.
Yeah. What's it going to do to the horse market? Because I was thinking about it yesterday, like everybody's home riding their young horses right now. So there's going to be kind of an influx of horses, but the great ones are still the great ones. You think it changes the horse market if that's kind of steers? Because like for the last, 10 years, we've seen head horses getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And cattle, or, open guys rope cattle, they rope them down so fast that you don't really consistently rope a strong set of steers all summer. But now, if that does happen, are people going to change their horse approach or just keep riding what they've always ridden?
I think probably just ride what they've always ridden, because the problem, I mean, there is going to be a lot of good horses ready to go, but they haven't been nowhere because we don't have no rope.
Right. So you're going to ride what you know is going to hit the barrier and run as fast as it can.
Fast as it can, yeah. But if you know where there's a good one and you've got the money and knowing that the rodeos are just now starting, I mean, I bet people will spend some money for some good ones.
Do you think the size, I'm asking because I have a gigantic horse right now. Do you think the size of horses will increase just for the year? Let me say it this way. If you knew that you could make the finals in 2 months and the cattle are going to be big and strong, does a guy go buy a horse for that if you got the money and you always a good one, where like the next year it's going to go back to normal? Or do you just like hold out, wait for those 2 months?
I'd say they're going to go buy them, because I've rode giant horses my whole entire career.
Yeah.
Giants.
Yeah.
I mean, Brady Miter used to say about TiVo that we'd get somewhere and he'd be like, hey, that's a 15-foot box. If there was a carrot at the barrier, I bet TiVo could get it. As a joke. And it was funny.
Built like the Sinclair dinosaur that's got like the big
long neck giraffe. We got in a fight one time because he said that my horse's neck was so long that he bit Jim's heel horse in the ass. And we were in Burley, Idaho. And like Jim came out of the trailer scared, like that something bad was happening. It was just Brady and I fighting.
Well, so what's your advice? I mean, if somebody's got cattle right now, what would you tell them to do? Just hang on and wait and see what happens.
I would. I mean, can't sell them and lose money. So hopefully
it's a guaranteed loss. If you sell them right now, it's a guaranteed loss. If you hang on to them, there's a chance it turns on here before too long and you kind of make something back on.
I hope it turns around for everybody, because if not, I think all the contractors and producers are all going to be in the same boat.
Yeah, it's going to be weird. I mean, I don't – something like this happens, there's going to be casualties. And what I mean by that is not 100% of people are going to make it through the way they thought they would. No. There's going to be changes, and I think we're already past the point where we're asking those questions. We now know like things are going to look a little different. Now it's just a matter of to what degree. And
well, like us a little bit, it's like it's not good. Yeah. But we're going to keep going and try to do as many ropings as we can, and hopefully I can do ropings next year.
Well, and the good thing about, not good, but the comforting part about it right now is like you guys didn't do anything wrong. I mean, you've been building a business. It's still a young business, but you guys have been building a business and doing what you can. And then now all of a sudden you're going like, well, at least it's not just our mistake. It wasn't like you made some bad investment or did something dumb. You're literally just going through the motions, and our whole nation has this like,
just got too many steers right now. But other than that,
nothing
we really did.
I mean, if you think about it, like too many steers, that's not a problem a year ago. A year ago, you're like, great, awesome. And now it's like, how do you know? But I think that, I mean, to me, like with the church stuff, that helps. It's not like we stubbed our toe or made some giant mistake. It's not like I had to stand up and issue some weird apology to the church or like I did something really dumb. It's just literally, hey, we're kind of everybody. It's like I say about the athletes being connected now to the people that buy tickets. We're all sort of in this boat.
Oh, for sure.
Everybody's trying to just figure it out. So, well, maybe we'll do this again once it's all wrapped up and we decide how we all came out of it.
Hope there's a lot of positive stuff coming.
Right. Yeah. Right now it's just a lot of question marks. I mean, like that's kind of the like the emoji for 2020 is just question mark.
I don't know.
Who knows? Yeah. Awesome. Well, hey, I appreciate you jumping on. I'm curious to see how it all kind of pans out.
This is fun.
Yep. Perfect.